All right, students, in our last unit, in Unit 10, 10.4, we will be combining everything we've been discussing so far into thinking and language. All right, this is where the unit gets really complicated, so pay attention and keep up. All right, now no one disputes the stages of language development in children or the sequence of those stages, but there are differences of opinion as to what it all means. Two issues in particular have been lively topics of controversy. Some psychologists argue for nurture or experiential factors by stating that we must develop language before we can develop the ability to think. This is because we need verbal labels of stimuli in our environment in order to cognitively process them. Now, other psychologists make the nature argument that we are born with the ability to think and learn, and language develops as a result. So what's the answer? Well, in 1957, behaviorist Skinner wrote a book entitled Verbal Behavior. Remember Skinner from operant conditioning? The Skinner box guy? Him? Yeah, that's him. Well, he wrote this book called Verbal Behavior, in which he argued that children learn to speak the way animals learn to run mazes. They associate objects and words, imitate adults, and repeat phrases that are met by social reinforcement. So if a baby says ball, 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 and you give the baby the ball every time, he's going to make those associations through rewards, through operant conditioning. Through trial and error, for example, a baby of English-speaking parents learns to repeat the babbling sounds that excite mom and dad, but not foreign sounds that leave them cold. In response to Skinner, linguist Noam Chomsky argued forcefully that the human brain is specially hardwired for the acquisition of language. Especially, he argued, that children are endowed from birth with universal grammar, core rules common to all human languages, and the ability to apply these rules to the language they hear spoken. And here is Noam Chomsky pictured here. He's a linguistic professor at MIT, still there today. To some extent, it is clear that human beings are genetically prepared for language the way that computers are pre-wired for programming. The environment we live in may provide the software that determines what language we learn to speak, but biology provides the hardware that control when and how we learn it. It's also clear that in the acquisition of language, there is a critical or at least sensitive period during the first few years of life when humans are most receptive to language learning. That is why adolescents and adults who learn a second language speak it with an accent, while children who acquire a new language before puberty speak it without an accent. The same pattern is true in an acquisition of grammar. The second debate concerns the chicken and the egg problem. What comes first, thought or language? Piaget believed that children must understand a concept before they can use words to describe it. Thus, babies cannot say all gone or bye-bye until they understand the concept of object permanence. Yet other developmental psychologists believe that language shapes thought and that children develop concepts in order to understand the words they hear from others. Thus, the child who hears dog tries to understand the word by searching for objects that might fit that word. It appears that both views are correct. Words and concepts emerge at roughly the same time, and the causal arrow points in both directions. Sometimes children use words to communicate what they already know, and sometimes they form concepts to fit the words they hear. So we've shown that thought and language are interrelated cognitive activities. We are now faced with the question, what is the nature of their interrelationship? Common sense tells us that language is a useful tool for expressing thought, but that it is not necessary. Thus, child development researchers have found that young children understand concepts before they have words to explain them, and that they can assign objects to categories even when they do not have the relevant vocabulary. For example, when I say snack, my son Emerson knows immediately to run to his high chair, even though he can't say the word snack. In the 5th century BC, Herodotus, a Greek historian, argued that the Greeks and Egyptians thought differently because the Greeks wrote from the left to right and the Egyptians wrote from right to left. Many years later, Benjamin Lee Whorf theorized that the language we speak, the words, rules, grammar, and so on, determines the way we conceptualize the world around us. This notion that our thoughts are relative to our linguistic heritage is called the linguistic relativity hypothesis. This hypothesis gave rise to a profound prediction that people of different cultures who speak different languages must think in different ways. As we'll see, this hypothesis led researchers to span the globe in search of cross-cultural comparisons. Does language have the power to shape the way people think? As a result of many years of research, nobody believes that language determines thought the way genes determine a person's height, but most psychologists do agree with a less radical claim that language influences thinking. If language can influence thought, then words are tools that can be used to socialize our children, sell products, mold public opinion, and stir the masses. People in power are aware of this connection and choose their words carefully. As has been colorfully documented, the result is called doublespeak, language that is designed to mislead, conceal, inflate, confuse, and distort the actual meaning. Thus, we are told that a new tax is a user's fee, and that companies that fire employees are merely downsizing, that recession is negative economic growth, that civilian war deaths are collateral damage, and that plastic handbags are made of genuine imitation leather. Even more common are the euphemisms we all use to talk about touchy subjects. Thus we say that people who died passed away, that pornographic movies are adult films, and that we need to use the toilet in a restroom. So when we're talking about sensitive subjects or sensitive words, we typically phrase them in a way so it'll make it less impactful on the person we're talking to, and when they're thinking about what we're saying, it'll be less impactful and less severe. So that will wrap up linguistic our discussion on Unit 10 with thinking and language, and I'll see you guys next time.